Thank you, Jen, for the nice presentation also about what ORCIS is. So, hi everyone, and I hope you're enjoying the conference so far. I'm Olivier Poupani, Head of DevRel at ORCIS. And my talk today is especially focused on backend for frontend or back for front or BFF. I know that you're Vue.js developers and you probably had to face how to abstract the complexity of a proper backend and is the way services should be consumed without having to request changes to your backend team that may be internal or external to your organization. So front ends need state, right? So you're already managing state between your Vue components. And that's probably the entire front end knows the context of the user interactions, and most of the data that is retrieved from the backend is already saved in the front end state. But there is a need for more. And what about if the user stops using the app for a long period of time, or if there are some networking issues as an example here? So let's take the example of an order processing flow, as you can see on the right part of the screen here. Let's say that we want to implement that and all the screens that are beyond that process. How do you handle all the sessions? Where the data are maintained? How do I start a new session or resume an existing one if there was a problem? The problem can be not only that the service has a failure, but maybe something in between the call and the service. Maybe the network has a failure. It's very difficult to keep the state just in your front-end app or ask the service to do all of that. And that's why there is a spot for the front, for the back for front to manage states. Also, when you're in a multi-user scenario, that can be also the case. So how do we do that usually? We create new APIs for the session management. We create new databases to store sessions. We make process to clean up processes that are abandoned, some in that case some cards, and the sessions as well. But there is a need for more. How you go also beyond the state? How do you explore the user experience, different user experience scenarios? You need to do some A/B tests, maybe. You need to have different flows if you're from a desktop or from a mobile app. You need to give the application just for a subset of users before you roll out 100%, or you need to manage some rollbacks because you can see that it's not working. So consider all of this for different applications, different front end for different devices. It's pretty cumbersome. So there is definitely a case for a stateful back for front to avoid managing state databases for your UI, to make sure that the flow can heal itself when there is a failure somewhere. That will make and ensure the durability of application flows. No need for storage on the device or browser, so that it encourages a stronger security. Have a session IDs just as a pointer to the user state in the entire application flow. And have screens personalized based, or even the navigation of screens based on user preferences, their geo location, or sometimes just the application need. Same for the case of the stateful back for front. The UI flow is not necessarily everything that the user sees, and it can be also, and it should be adapted to different kind of consumption or different kind of user audiences. Maybe you want also to rely on some external services to introduce address verification. You want to add a step to verify your one-time password after registrations. You want to capture analytics or doing all that things. And this is why I would like to introduce you to Conductor. You may have heard about Conductor from Netflix. This is a product that has been created at Netflix. And ORCIS is a company and that has been funded by the creator of Conductor at Netflix. The GitHub repo is www.conductoross.org, and I encourage you, if you want to support our open source initiative, to start a repo. And I would like to promote the fact also that I will be pleased to host a workshop on February 15th to help you, if you're interested, to build and see how you can build stateful backend for front end pretty easily using Conductor. So feel free to join me there. It's free, and it's there is no limited spots, so everyone is welcome. That's it for me, and that's it for today. Hope to see you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you. We do have a few questions for you. So from the audience let's see what the first one is. Out of all the reasons you highlighted for using stateful BFFs over traditional API approaches, which do you consider the most compelling?
Well, the problem is that usually it's this relation between front-end teams and back-end teams, right? The back-end team is going to propose you the services that is the most loosely coupled as possible, and they're going to think that they're going to be okay for all the different usages from your front-end point of view. The problem of just developing APIs is not enough. You need to make sure about the routing of those APIs. And if each service needs to know which other service to call in order to make that flow, that traditionally is what developers are doing, then they're no more loosely coupled. By extracting this routing into an orchestration platform, you can you free your services to be consumed the way you want. For the sometimes different user groups needs to have a different routing as well. So that's, I would say, the most compelling differences between this traditional approach.
Thank you. And next one, how seamlessly does Orquez integrate with popular front-end frameworks like Vue and existing developer workflows? Is there a supportive community and ecosystem?
Very good question. Thank you. Yeah, there is a pretty dynamic Slack community so far, and we're going to launch more. We're going to launch a discourse also site where discussions can be there, and we can also have a kind of knowledge base that can be created over time. Conductor is totally agnostic in terms of language. We support all languages that can be backend or frontend, of course, JavaScript and TypeScript, but it's very lightweight, so you can integrate it in your own framework, can be Vue.js or even something else, or your particular version of Vue.js if you want. So it's pretty friendly with all popular front-end framework, I would say.
Thank you. All right, 2 more questions. Can you clarify any common misconceptions or challenges developers might have when considering stateful BFFs?
Yeah, sometimes we developer thinks that the state and maintaining the state is just a question of an execution from A to Z that occurs at that particular moment of the user interaction. It should not. You can, if you think about like a order processing system where the user is adding something in the cart, right? It can be interrupted. It can be interrupted and then come back the day after. How do you know where it was in the flow, right? So orchestration will help you to create a stateful BFF, whatever the longer the state should be. You decide. You can say also in case of issues, you can decide if you want, for example, the flow to continue and ignore the problem. Like, okay, the service cannot be called. We're going to go to the next step. that will make the user go to the next screen. Or you can say, oh, we are in a real serious transaction here. We need to trigger a compensation flow at that time and bring him to something different in the front-end part. So all of this is something that usually you code by hand. And when it comes to hard changes, because the business on that part is always changing every day by making new partnerships or making new providing new services. This is where the challenge is, to not go back all the time to the code and having to redevelop the front end part. Just adaptation at the back for front. You have a layer that secure the consumption of the real services in the back
I think you started leading into the next question that we have of what are the best resources or strategies for develops when taking their first steps in to and ensure success with stateful BFFs?
Well, I would say there is also something is to totally abstract from the backend and say, I want to develop the front end. I am with my UX designer, and we're going to build those screen flows together. I'm going to implement this screen flow in my front end app, and I'm going to mock that we have the right services, right? So I'm going to construct something that is in the back for front, and by using an orchestration platform, I can go very easily. You can do it from a UI point of view. So we have like a UI designer, for example, or you can do it in JavaScript or TypeScript if you prefer to do the flow in coding. But when you execute that, you will see it as a graph as well. So you can directly see and introspect when you do your screen flow, you run your screen flow, what happens on the back for front, even if you don't have the back end yet. So you can prototype better your front end and see if the user experience is the right one or not. So
All
that's
right.
a good strategy, is to build also from the BFF.
The last question I think would be really helpful is, do you have any use cases for startups or smaller companies, or is this something that makes more sense for big companies with a lot of integrations?
Well, it depends, because I would say, yes, there is thousands of companies already using Conductor for those reasons, and I cannot say them, but it's over different industries. We have a lot in financial industries, in transportations, in car manufacturers as well. If you search for Netflix Conductor, you'll probably see all the names. But it's also for smaller companies who have like the challenge of addressing a lot of different users. Where do you manage all of those user preferences? Where do you address a user community that has a flow that is a little bit different than another user community? This can be piloted by an orchestration that is really at your back for front. So that's why we think that Conductor can be your best back for front and abstract you from having dedicated services in the back end to do so.
Interesting. Thank you. Gives me a lot of things that I want to look into and learn more about. I appreciate it. And that's
Thanks,
all the
Jen.
questions I have for today.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.